Everything is about to change in the next Heartland chapter. There is now a storm beneath the tranquil fields, the sound of horses running, and the moments of silence that once felt safe. Even though Season 19 has only just begun, the second episode is already giving us hints of something deeper, something that could completely transform Heartland. What are Amy, Lou, and our extended family's upcoming enigmas? Let's take a look at what was shown in the first episode and why it's setting up one of the most intense storylines we've seen in a long time. The first episode of Heartland Season 19 began not only with fresh beginnings but also with subtle reminiscences of the past. The land appeared familiar, but there was something new in the air, the impression that time and the people we care about have progressed. As always, Amy is at the center of everything. She is attempting to re-establish equilibrium between her life as a mother, her work as a horse trainer, and her ongoing recovery from loss. A severe storm lurks beneath her serene exterior. She is seen working with a troubled horse in one of the first scenes, her hands steady but her eyes closed. Although it is a subtle moment, it reveals that she is still figuring out how to regain her faith in life. Jack, the family's steady hand, brings his usual quiet wisdom, but even he seems weighed down by memories and worries that time is getting away from him. There's a tender moment when he talks to Amy about courage, the kind that doesn't come from fixing things, but from accepting them. We are reminded of why he has always been the family's emotional center when his words linger after the scene is over. Lou, on the other hand, is caught in her usual struggle of trying to lead, control, and keep everything in order while her own life is whirling around in many different directions. Her position as mayor continues to put her priorities and patience to the test. Particularly in her efforts to strike a balance between her relationships and her responsibilities, we can see the beginning of cracks. When she talks about the town's future, there is a slight tension in her voice, as if she is aware that no matter how much she gives, it may never feel like enough. Tim's stubborn, fiery, and restless energy has not changed, but there is a sense that he is putting in more effort this time around, particularly when it comes to how he interacts with his family. The writers seem to be hinting at a softer side of Tim emerging, though it's still rough around the edges. Some of the best dialogue in the episode comes from his interactions with Jack, two men who have seen the world change and are trying to figure out where they fit in now. Amy's daughter, Lindy, is developing into her own persona. She is bright, curious, and brimming with the quiet strength of her mother. We are reminded that the next generation of Heartland is already here by her fleeting actions. The trailer for Heartland Season 19, Episode 2 doesn't tell the story loudly, rather, it tells it in whispers and moments where you almost have to lean in to understand what they mean. Amy is shown in the paddock at the beginning, the early morning light spilling across the fields. When the camera lingers on her face for an excessive amount of time, you can tell she is thinking about something serious. Her eyes are still, as you would expect them to be before a change you can't avoid. She touches Spartan's mane with her hand. Despite its insignificance, it bears the entire weight of her journey. It's joy mixed with sorrow. The tone changes after a brief flash at her desk and an increase in her voice as she argues on the phone. She is attempting to maintain her composure, but the cracks are beginning to show. She is not named in the trailer, but the tension in her voice says enough. Lou is a fighter, but she is exhausting herself by attempting to hold everyone together while her own life begins to unravel. Next, we see Jack at dusk sitting on the porch looking at an old photo, the corners of which are worn from holding on for years. Without words, he tells a story through his silence. The shot ends quickly, but before it does, we can just barely make out the tiniest tear in his eye, which serves as a reminder that time can break even the strongest hearts. It is beautiful and haunting in the way that the show always finds love wrapped in pain. The next event that drew everyone's attention was Amy's sudden halt as she entered the barn and observed an unfamiliar figure standing there. The person's silhouette against the light is all that the camera shows, not their face. After a brief upswing, the music abruptly stops. That's all there is, one unfinished scene that ignited every internet fan theory. Who might it be from her past? A companion or something more? The trailer works precisely because it doesn't answer any questions. The subsequent clips move quickly, with Tim arguing with someone off camera, Lindy laughing while riding her pony, Lou closing her eyes in frustration, and Jack slamming his hand down on the table, all occurring. It feels like every second is a heartbeat building towards something we can't yet see. Sharp, emotional, and almost poetic is the editing. It's less about showing what happens and more about what it feels like. Love, tension, regret, and possibly even a glimmer of hope are all present. Additionally, a literal storm appears briefly. Dust is being kicked up by the wind as gloomy clouds gather over the ranch. Weather is more than just weather in Heartland, it's a symbol. Change occurs immediately following a storm. Perhaps that is the subject of episode 2, the kind of change that cannot be stopped once it has begun. The quiet before the roar. The silence before someone says something they've been holding back. The emotional center appears to be Amy's story once more, but this time it feels different. She is no longer faking her pain or running away from it. She is, on the other hand, learning to carry it without letting it control her and to live alongside it. She says more than words can say about Spartan in that brief moment. Memory is at the heart of this story, not just a horse. Spartan has seen every Amy, from the broken to the brave to the hopeful, and now he represents everything she has endured. When healing does not mean forgetting, but rather remembering differently, it appears that episode 2 is about rediscovering who she is. The story is always anchored by family. Jack's presence is felt strongly, not as an authoritative figure, but as a man who is quietly battling the passage of time. Lou's arc seems to show pressure, how responsibility can become both a purpose and a burden at the same time. Tim's anger is replaced by fear of losing connection, becoming irrelevant, or being left behind, in his frustration. This is what sets this season apart. The same quiet question is at the heart of each character's struggle: what happens when life moves on without you? Every frame carries the legacy theme. The ranch itself feels like a living memory of the family's triumphs and tragedies. It looks like the second episode will remind us that Heartland is more than just a place. It's a promise to continue being there for one another, even when it's hard to forgive, to rebuild, and to start over. Heartland is about to experience change, and not everyone will react the same. Despite the possibility of shifting relationships and reopening old wounds, there is beauty in watching these characters try. Because Heartland excels at doing that. It demonstrates that love does not require perfection. Choosing to care, even when it hurts, is the key. If the first episode was about setting the stage, the second one feels like the season's emotional heartbeat, when action turns into reflection. There is a moment of silence at the end of the trailer that feels sacred. No sound. No words, only the breeze over the hills. This is the kind of ending that doesn't completely shut the door, rather, it leaves a small opening for whatever comes next. Perhaps that is the point. The purpose of episode 2 is not to provide all of the answers, but rather to remind us that life moves forward even when we are not ready. Heartland is still the same story about holding on when everything tells you to let go, a story about holding on. A story about beauty in the everyday, strength in silence, and hope in unexpected places. One thing is certain, regardless of what happens next, the Heartland continues to be strong. And it's not over yet for us.